In the coming days, I will announce updated Justice Department guidance regarding profiling by federal law enforcement. This will institute rigorous new standards and robust safeguards to help end racial profiling once and for all.
That's Attorney General Eric Holder's bold response to the Michael Brown and Eric Garner cases. But not everyone agrees. With me, Sheriff David Clarke of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Good evening, Sheriff. Is Holder right? Do we need to end racial profiling?
Not only is he wrong, but he's way out of line. He hasn't produced, Judge, and you know this, he hasn't produced one shred of evidence that law enforcement officers or agencies either systematically, institutionally, or through policy initiatives engage in racist practices. So for him to want to paint this broad brush, or use a broad brush, I should say, and indict every law enforcement officer in America, I reject that. I'm insulted by that, and I'm going to continue to stick up for the men and women who put on the uniform and go out and protect and defend their communities.
You know, Sheriff, the thing that amazes me is that there was no racial profiling here. You've got Michael Brown in the middle of the street, and they're telling him to move along, get out of the middle of the street. You've got Eric Garner, who the local shop owners are saying the guy's selling loosies, which are those loose cigarettes. I mean, where is the racial profiling? Does anyone even know what that means?
No, he won't define it either. He won't define it because he wants to be able to keep a sliding scale and a moving target. He'll move the goalposts every time we're able to reject and with evidence disprove this claim of racial profiling. Look, the Michael Brown and the Garner case are two very different cases, but there is one parallel that winds through both of them, is that we have individuals who would not comply with the law enforcement officers' lawful demands. One of them, or commands I should say, one of them, get out of the street, and the other, put your hands behind your back. I would like to remind people that you have an obligation, whether you think you have to or not, to comply with an officer's lawful demands. Mike Brown gets out of the street, we have a very different outcome. If Garner puts his hand behind his back, we have a very different outcome. So we need to talk about that as well, as why so many of our young black males, and I'm troubled by this, are walking around angry with this chip on their shoulders, and they resent authority. That's really what this is about. It's played out at home with their parents. It's played out in school with the teachers, where they don't accept the authority there, or they reject the authority. And then all of a sudden it gets into the street in a situation where the person that they are going to stand up to, if you will, wrongfully, is going to push back, and that's the American police officer. Because once a police officer makes a decision that somebody's going to jail, somebody's going to jail.
Right, right. And you know, I want to ask you, Sheriff, about something that is bothering a lot of us, including me. We're going to put up a screen of Eric Garner. Now, I want to know, is this a chokehold or is this a takedown? That's one where the cop's behind him with his arm on his throat. And let's show him the second full screen, and that's with his hand on his head. Would you please tell us, is this a chokehold, a takedown, and why is his hand on his head?
Well, you know, I don't know all the facts of that case, and I'm just looking at a couple of slides, but, you know, these things don't happen in a linear fashion. When you go to get somebody into custody who does not want to be taken into custody, it's all over the place. You end up with body parts, you end up grabbing people in places that you didn't intend to do because they're moving all around. You could see that Mr. Garner there did not want to be taken into custody. He's a large man. You know, you hold things down, I don't know, hand on the shoulder, hand on the head, but when the individual continues to resist arrest, you do what you have to do to get him into custody. I think it's a tragedy that both of these men died. There's no doubt about that. These cops did not enter into this situation wanting to use deadly force.
You know what? We're going to get cut off, Sheriff. Thanks for being with us tonight. Thank you,
Judge,
Sheriff.
It's always my pleasure.
All right, and coming up, an American hostage killed